Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take a stack of your sources, basically pull out all the interesting stuff, the insights, the things that'll make you sound smart at parties.
That's a good way to put it.
Today we're tackling The Fiery Cross, the fifth book in Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series. So if you haven't read the first four, you might be a little lost, but hey, stick around anyway.
You never know. You might just get hooked.
Exactly. Now, The Fiery Cross, it takes us to 1770s North Carolina, right on the cusp of the American Revolution.
Oh, yeah. And you can feel the tension building. Gabaldon really captures the atmosphere of unrest. I mean, everyone's on edge, ready to fight for what they believe in.
Especially the regulators.
Right. These are colonists, a lot of them Scottish Highlanders, just like Jamie, who are fed up with the way things are run. They see the corruption, the unfair taxes, and they're not having it.
And that puts Jamie in a really tough spot.
Absolutely. Here he is, sworn to the crown, but also deeply connected to his community, many of whom are these same regulators.
So when Governor Tryon tells Jamie to raise a militia to put down the unrest, talk about a conflict of interest.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, some of his closest friends and neighbors were involved in those Hillsborough riots, which were a major turning point for the regulator movement. And now he's supposed to lead a force against them.
It's a real moral dilemma. Where does your loyalty lie? With the crown or with your own people?
And that's a question that still resonates today, right? I mean, how do you navigate those gray areas when the lines get blurred? But even with all the political turmoil, Gabaldon doesn't lose sight of the personal stories.
Right, like Jamie and Claire's relationship. It's always evolving, always deepening. They've been through so much together, but their love just seems to grow stronger.
And their daughter, Brianna, she's really coming into her own in this book. She's embracing her Scottish heritage, even starting to speak Gaelic more often.
Yeah, it's like she's finding her place in this new world, connecting with her roots. But while family ties are strengthening, romantic relationships are facing their own challenges.
Like the whole Stephen Bonnet situation, that guy's a real piece of work.
Yeah, he's a villain from a previous book, but his shadow still hangs over everything, especially for Brianna and Roger.
And then Roger gets falsely accused of something, and there's a real threat that he might be hanged. Talk about raising the stakes.
Gabaldon really knows how to keep you on the edge of your seat. But amidst all this drama and tension, there are these beautiful moments of tradition and culture.
Like when Jamie performs that sword dance at the Hogmanay celebration. Man, that scene gave me chills.
It's more than just a dance, right? It's a connection to his past, to his heritage. It's like you can feel the weight of history in every move.
Totally. And speaking of things that feel weighted with history, Gabaldon keeps weaving in those subtle hints of the supernatural.
Like that creepy encounter with the ghost bear.
Right. It makes you question what's real and what's imagined. Is it just folklore? Or is there something more going on? But all those simmering tensions we talked about earlier, they eventually reach a boiling point.
Leading to the Battle of Alamance.
Which is a turning point in the story, both for the characters and for the colonies as a whole. But we'll dive into that more when we come back for part 2.
Stay tuned.
That Battle of Alamance, it really shakes things up for everyone involved.
Yeah, people are dealing with loss, questioning where their loyalties lie, trying to pick up the pieces and move forward.
It's a time of uncertainty, that's for sure. But even in the midst of all that upheaval, you see glimmers of hope, moments of resilience, like with Abel McLennan.
Right. He goes through a terrible tragedy, losing his wife, and kind of shuts down for a while, isolates himself.
Consumed by grief, you know. But he eventually finds a way to come back to the community, and when he does, he's stronger, more determined.
It's like going through that fire, forged something new in him. And while the community is healing from the battle, there's this other threat that emerges. Something shrouded in mystery and fear.
Oh, you mean the whole ghost bear thing? Yeah, that gets pretty intense.
A series of strange events in this small village culminate in this hunt for a ghost bear that's supposedly terrorizing the inhabitants.
And this is where Gabaldon really excels, the way she blends folklore and superstition with the natural world. You're never quite sure what's real and what's imagined.
Yeah, she keeps you guessing. And that ghost bear becomes this symbol of the unknown, of all the things lurking in the shadows, both real and imagined.
It preys on people's fears, their prejudices. It shapes how they see the world.
Makes you think about how easily fear can distort the truth. But as the story unfolds, the truth behind that ghost bear, well, it turns out to be a lot more complex, a lot more human than anyone expected.
It's a reminder not to jump to conclusions, to look beyond the surface.
To dig a little deeper.
Exactly. And meanwhile, Brianna and Roger's relationship, it's going through its own set of trials. really testing their love and commitment.
The trauma Brianna experienced with Stephen Bonnet, it continues to haunt her. It casts this long shadow over their happiness.
It's a really raw and honest portrayal of how trauma can impact relationships. Brianna's struggling to balance her love for Roger with this deep-seated fear and vulnerability.
It's heartbreaking, but it feels so real.
Yeah, it's definitely not sugar-coated. They're also dealing with the whole challenge of bridging a cultural divide. Roger's a man of the 20th century trying to find his footing in the 18th century.
His values, his expectations, they don't always match with the realities of life on the frontier.
We see this play out when he is asked to help raise men for the militia. Initially, he resists, He's a pacifist at heart.
But as he spends more time in this world, he starts to adapt, finds ways to reconcile his beliefs with the demands of this new life.
And he even discovers this hidden talent for singing, which allows him to connect with the community in this really profound way.
It's like music becomes this bridge between centuries, between cultures. And speaking of connections, there's this incredibly moving scene between Jamie and Claire where they talk about the possibility of having another child.
Oh, yeah, that one gets me every time. It's so intimate, so vulnerable. They're laying bare their hopes, their fears, everything.
And what struck me is that Claire, knowing what she knows about the future, having access to birth control and all that, she still ultimately leaves the decision up to Jamie.
It shows how deep their respect and trust is. And Jamie's response, oh man, it's just perfect. He tells her he doesn't want another child. He just wants her.
Such a beautiful affirmation of their love. But their happiness is always threatened, like that dark cloud hanging over everything.
Because Stephen Bonnet's out there. He escaped from prison.
And with a guy like that, you just know he's not going to let go of his grudges easily. He's cunning, ruthless, a real force to be reckoned with.
And then there's the attempted theft of Jocasta's gold. You can't help but wonder if Bonnet's involved somehow.
Right. It definitely adds another layer of intrigue. And we can't forget about the unsettling incident at the wedding celebration. The fact that we never find out for sure who attacked Claire, it leaves this unsettling feeling.
It's like a reminder that violence can happen anywhere, even in seemingly safe spaces. And it makes you question the whole idea of justice and accountability.
Yeah, it's a sobering reminder of the dangers women faced back then. But even with all the drama and darkness, Gabaldon still finds ways to inject humor and lightness into the story. Like that scene where Claire jokes about selling one of their horses to make ends meet.
Ah, yeah. It's those little moments that make the characters feel so real, so relatable. And it reminds us that even in the toughest of times, there's still room for laughter. Life on the frontier, it's a constant balancing act, and Gabaldon captures that perfectly. And speaking of balancing acts, there's that scene toward the end where Jamie and Claire are having this quiet moment by the fire, just enjoying each other's company. But then Claire notices this strange mark on Jamie's hand.
A physical reminder of the emotional scars he carries from the Battle of Alamance.
Right. It leads to this incredibly powerful conversation about forgiveness, about the lasting impact of trauma, about how hard it can be to reconcile the past with the present.
And then out of nowhere, bam, the wedding takes this unexpected turn.
Instead of Roger and Brianna getting married like everyone thought, Jamie makes this bold proclamation. He essentially adopts Roger into his clan, calls him his son.
It's a huge gesture. It signifies this deepening of their bond, this recognition of how much Roger has grown and changed.
It's like Jamie's passing the torch, acknowledging Roger as a worthy successor, someone who can help protect and guide his family in the future. But with that unexpected turn of events, it leaves you wondering, what's next?
What's going to happen with Roger and Brianna? Will they ever truly escape the shadow of Stephen Bonnet? And what about all those unanswered questions? To find out, you'll have to join us for part 3 of our deep dive into the Fiery Cross. All right, we're back and ready to finish up our deep dive into the Fiery Cross. Last we left off, Roger had just been adopted into the Fraser clan. Pretty surprising turn of events, right?
Oh yeah, definitely a big moment. Shows how much Jamie has come to trust and respect Roger, sees him as a true member of the family. But even with that happy occasion, there's still a lot of darkness lingering.
Like the whole Stephen Bonnet situation.
Yeah.
The guy is a loose cannon, and we all know he's not one to forgive and forget.
Exactly. It's like this constant threat hanging over everything. You're just waiting for him to pop up again and cause more chaos.
And we still don't know who attacked Claire at the wedding. That's another loose end that's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in a place that's supposed to be safe, bad things can happen. And it makes you question, will justice ever be served?
It's definitely a tough reality to grapple with. But through it all, Gabaldon keeps exploring those bigger themes like time travel, something that really sets this series apart.
Oh, absolutely. Like when Jamie starts wondering if his second sight, his ability to kind of see glimpses of the future, could be passed down, it gets you thinking of the whole nature of time travel and how it could affect future generations.
Right. And Brianna, she's having these vivid dreams that feel almost like memories for the future.
Yeah.
It really blurs the lines between past, present, and future.
It's like time isn't this straight line, you know? It's more like a circle, everything connected. Makes your head spin a little.
Definitely. But even with all that mind-bending stuff, the characters are still dealing with the nitty-gritty of daily life in the 18th century.
Like that whole situation with Lizzie Wemyss and the Beardsley twins, it's messy, complicated, and it really highlights the social constraints of the time, especially when it comes to love and relationships.
And the way Gabaldon resolves it, it's not what you'd expect. It pushes the boundaries of what was considered acceptable back then.
She's not afraid to tackle those tough social issues head on.
But it's not all serious and heavy, you know? There are those moments of humor that lighten things up. Like when Claire jokes about selling one of their horses to get back on their feet financially.
Yeah, she's got a great sense of humor. Helps to balance out all the drama and reminds us that these characters are human, you know? They laugh, they cry, they try to make the best of things, which is what makes them so relatable.
Absolutely. And there's this beautiful, quiet scene toward the end. Jamie and Claire are sitting by the fire, just enjoying a moment of peace. But then Claire notices this mark on Jamie's hand.
A scar from the Battle of Alamance. A physical reminder of all the violence and pain he's witnessed.
And it leads to this really powerful conversation about forgiveness and healing, about how the past can stay with you even as you try to move forward.
It's a reminder that their journey is far from over. They've come so far, but they still have a lot to face. But ultimately, The Fiery Cross is a story of resilience, of love and family. It's about finding hope even in the darkest of times.
Well said. The Fiery Cross is a truly captivating read, full of history, drama, and just a touch of magic. If you haven't already, definitely add it to your reading list. You won't be disappointed. And there you have it, folks, our deep dive into Diana Gabaldon's The Fiery Cross. We've explored the political turmoil, the complex relationships, and the enduring themes that make this book so compelling. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more explorations into fascinating topics. Until next time.